And I want to create, again, another framing element. I think I'm going to be safe, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it foreground tree. I'm going to go in with my chisel brush again and pick one of my darker tones. I'm going to get in here and just kind of break what I have. Using my rules of composition, thinking about my golden rules and my rule of thirds. Something coming off the side and just breaking the area so that it's not so linear will definitely make it more interesting. Ways to lead your eyes into the painting. This basically acts as like an arrow. So we're getting in here. I might do the same. Maybe I'll go with a smaller brush. And be pretty loose with these. Just make sure you get your your primary, your trunk. And sometimes it forks, sometimes it doesn't. I like forked trunks. And then you have your secondary and then some tertiary stuff. And don't worry about the tertiary. You can add those back in as we add the foliage. Oops. Sometimes be aware where your hands are on the keyboard. You might hit Option by accident and select the color you're not intending to use. I don't want to make it too symmetrical either. And just work this just enough so that you're confident the shape is interesting and it's framing the piece in the way you want it. And remember, these are just structures. We're going to have some foliage hanging off of these things. And I'm going to, at this point, go back to my favorite camo brush. And I'm going to, again, I'll probably use the same color. One of those greens. Just a nice dark base. Start plotting in the bottom of this canopy. Remember, you can always add more branches. I didn't draw any there yet, but I will. Once you start filling this in, you'll see the areas that you want the viewer's eye to go to and where you don't care for them so much. And now I'll go in here and pick some of my lighter tones. Maybe start somewhere here. And again, I like to get some of these more saturated colors breaking in, but lightly. You don't want to cover up all that dark area. And maybe even go a little warm. Just the slightest hint of some pale sepia maybe. Yeah, that'll work. Just for the slightest hint color there. And now we definitely have already our foreground, our middle ground, and our background. Just zoom and take a look. We can always finesse. But right now we definitely have some points of interest. I'm going to merge my foreground trees and my foregrounds together. And by doing that, I select on the top layer and hit Command E, and it'll merge with the layer right below it and take the name of the lower layer, so it's still called foreground. You can see. I'm going to add a new layer between my midground um, and my background, because I want this to be my reflections. I'm not going to name it just yet, and you'll see why soon. I'm going to use my airbrush tool and pick one of the darker colors here, and then go slightly darker than that because the reflections are slightly darker than the actual object. So I'm going to go in here and I want to make sure that I indicate the mountains are back there as well. And pick from some of these colors. And I'm not trying to create it exactly, I'm just trying to give the viewer the indication that it's there. And I'm going to also go back and kind of lightly wash the sky color back in it. I'm going to merge that with my layer, and that's why I'm going to rename the layer midground, because it took the lower layer name and it was going to be called layer 6. Doesn't make a difference, but for organization's sake, let's keep it organized. I'm going to go to my foreground layer. I'm going to lock transparent layers. I'm going to go in with my charcoal brush. I'm going to pick some nice rich brown color. Close this. I'm going to go in here and just add some hints of highlight for the tree. Just a little bit. I'm also going to go into my pencil brush and select, deselect my transparent layer. I'm going to go in and maybe add some of these things that I could use. And these are just the little details. Since they're the closest objects towards us, you know, we'll see some more. We don't need to see everything, but it does help to indicate it. And add some random blades of grass. And this area is a little unresolved, so I'll go in there. Maybe I'll go back and grab my camo brush and just kind of work this a little. And I'll grab some of these yellows, maybe a little canary yellow this time. Also, the light is seeing the other side of this tree, so that there actually would be some shadows. So I'll go in with my airbrush and I'll just pick the darkest tone and kind of make sure my flow is a little higher. Indicate. Some shadow there. And lastly, I'll just add a few details. Again with my pencil. How many layers do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 2 layers to spare. We might not even need them. And I will add some last water effects. Just to show some ripples. You know, maybe there's a rock. Let's throw a rock in right in the middle of this lake here. Maybe we can get that to work. Maybe with this marker. Actually, before we add the highlights, I want to go in and smudge it a bit. And little elements like that will always help. I would never do just one. Would always add a second or third smaller ones just to kind of reiterate what you're doing. Just do the same techniques, just smaller. Maybe some reeds. And with that, here's our background. Here's our landscape. Let's see, we still have another layer. I want to take advantage. I'm going to go back yet again between these two. I'm going to go with my airbrush. I might wind up changing the temperature just a little bit. Let's see how this works. Now what I'm doing is I lock the transparent layer just so I can brush in just a little bit of this yellow and make it kind of fall into this mountain. Even get in with my camo and ever so slightly just catch the pale yellowness. Let that really kind of show some texture in there. You know, we want to be very subtle with it, you know, so I'm letting it mix with the blue and then sampling and pulling it back, but at least there's that hint of the sky, of the sun kind of getting into the mountains there. I'll do the same with the water. Get that in there. And I'm gonna merge these together. And I'm gonna merge these together. And technically, I guess I will merge these two together. And now we have our foreground, our midground, and our background. And all three of these create a landscape where we can see there's definitely a lot of space and scale. We have our trees used as a foreground element. We have our mountains also as a framing element, letting the sun cascade over them. And we have our midground. We have some interesting stuff happening in the water and our foliage happening at the base of the mountain. This is Fred Gago for SketchBook Pro 6. I hope you enjoyed.